Hello, I'm Eric Witt, and this is a presentation on my vocational autobiography for a course in lifestyle and career at Colorado Christian University in the fall of 2019. I'm going to talk a little bit about where I've been with my career, where I think I'm headed, and how I know that that's the right path. I'll give a little bit of cultural background for my personal situation, some of the theories that I prefer, and what in my history has influenced that. And then finally, I'll talk about how I might work with a client who's looking for career advice. And I also added a little bit about why this is important. My family had a very strong work ethic, and that was instilled in me. I was doing chores around the house from a very young age, cleaning up and mowing the lawn at our house. And then pretty soon I was mowing the lawn for the neighbors. By age 8, I had siblings and was asked to help out with them. Shortly after that, I was babysitting for my parents and then eventually for the neighbor kids or the neighbor families as well. Age 12 or so, I was picking berries, riding a bus to the berry fields and picking berries all day. And probably by 14 or so, I was baling hay with my grandfather. He had a hay baling business, and so I was throwing hay bales, getting in shape, and making money. As soon as I was old enough to get a W-2 job, I did so, working at various fast food places, KFC and Pizza Hut. I was a courtesy clerk for Safeway for a little while. I got a job at Taco Bell and moved into it had social skills, management skills apparently, moved into a shift supervisor role there fairly quickly. And that's also where I happened to meet my wife at 17. That was a few years ago. And then also in my later teen years, through a family connection, I got a job at a place called Van Care in Vancouver, Washington, where I was working with mentally handicapped adults and basically house managing over the weekend. And I enjoyed that job quite a bit. It was fairly short-lived. During that time, I had completed a 2-year degree in engineering and was eager to get my career started. I got a job at Sequent Computer Systems as a technician. I went on to work at Intel while I was going to school to complete my bachelor's. Got my first engineering job at Fujitsu. And then also in my 20s, I had some substance use issues, primarily alcohol. And so I just got associated with groups like AA and eventually a community organization called Mountain Ministries in the area that I lived. And not only did I get some treatment there for a period of time, but I also continued to be associated with that organization, doing work for them and doing informal counseling and just helping others regain their lives. Returned to my career with Screen and Wafer Tech, Hitachi, working kind of side by side, both in my career and in various community organizations. I was later involved with Salvation Army and their Adult Rehabilitation Center, and eventually ran a group home for, it was similar to an Oxford house, I guess, for guys in recovery from all kinds of substances, called Agape House. And just kind of bounced back and forth in my career. I could either make money or I could help people, but I couldn't do both. And that's kind of how it went for many years. My engineering career, through a long series of events, kind of morphed into a supervisor role at SolarWorld and then eventually at Analog Devices, where I still currently am. And in that role, I got to help people a lot more. I got to do some career counseling. I got to do some, just helping people move forward with their lives. And then also, of course, dealing with their personal problems informally, helping them be more efficient workers in the workplace. So it was kind of a hodgepodge of being an engineer, being a helper, and being a supervisor, but I didn't really know how to combine those things. In hindsight, looking back, I can certainly see how God was preparing me in a variety of ways through all my roles in life. Although I had a track to be an engineer and do a certain thing with my life from a very young age, while anything else was going on, I was also involved with people, even though I didn't think of myself as a people person. from the child care as a young person to the working with the mentally handicapped at Van Care, uh, the recovery community with Mountain Ministries and Salvation Army, and running the Agape Home. To currently, I'm working with Lifeline Connections, also community mental health for my internship. So no matter what else was going on in my life, I was always dealing with people and issues and helping people succeed and grow and mature. And didn't really realize that till 5 years or so ago. Of course, now I'm here at Colorado Christian University getting my master's degree in counseling. Currently midway through the process. I plan to continue and complete that, take my CPCE after completing my internship. I then plan to, in short order, take the NCE as well, and begin to get my supervised hours towards licensure. During that time, I want to take some specialized trainings, and I don't know if I'll be working full-time or part-time. If I can continue to work as a supervisor and also get hours, I may do that for a few years. If God brings the right opportunity, maybe I'll quit and go full-time. I just haven't quite gotten to that point yet. I want to check into substance use certifications in the state of Washington and maybe get those or begin to pursue those while I'm doing my supervised hours. But primarily throughout the entire process, I want to actively seek God's direction for my life. It's something that I always thought I was committed to, but have in recent years fully committed myself to it. So, the people that I'll be working with and what certifications I achieve will really be dependent on what God wants me to do. Like I said in point 4 there, he will put me where I fit by his design. Right now, when I think forward about it, I envision working for a small practice, community organization, or maybe a church-based organization, possibly even private practice. But I want to help my local community and the people that are hurting. When I think about what assessments I've used to determine whether or not this career path is viable or not, it's really been a lifelong process, directed by God. As I said, throughout my life and career, no matter what else was going on, I've always, in hindsight, found that I was always involved with people and helping. So I've been growing in that, and that was one assessment that I've done in reviewing my past. And there's been much confirmation along the way about the path that I'm on, even to the point of at the beginning of my school process, basically God provided the money without any way that I could have known how that was going to happen. It was definitely a confirmation for me. My life experience, I've got a lot of experience in the community with substance use, alcoholism, but other helping other people with other addictions issues. My family and their communication style, and the friends that I've dealt with, and the losses that I've had. Just been, almost 50 years of experience that applies to this path. Family and friends, coworkers throughout the years have suggested that I be a counselor, that I pursue that I help people, that I'm a great listener. So that's been a constant theme throughout my life that I'm finally acting on. And then the theoretical aspect of things, I really fit in with the cognitive thought process. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And pretty much all the theories as I read them, I identified with them on some level. And even psychoanalytical, I always thought I didn't like Freud, but I'm finding the more that I study, the more that I do believe that the past has a big effect. So whether or not Freud was 100% right or not, I definitely identify. The Myers-Briggs was always a thing for me. I took Myers-Briggs when I was 20, and then again when I was about 30, and I was a solid ISTJ. I was an engineer, and that's how I thought. And I was of the impression at the time that it didn't change. And now as I approach 50, I'm solidly in the middle of an INFJ, so more intuition and more feeling, even though I still tend towards introversion and judging. I definitely am more intuitive and feeling, and that has been stable over the last couple of years. And then more recently, the Cooter website provided some assessments that I took, the skills confidence and work values. Both provided me with information that showed me that not only am I a problem solver, but I'm people oriented, and that my values lean towards this role. And then finally, the genogram, looking back at that, I talked a lot in the genogram assignment about my father and how I wanted to impress him and live up to his standards. But I also, thinking back, my aunt was a counselor, and I had a great deal of respect for her and her education. So there were some family effects there. And then, of course, I'm currently in school, and so the fact that I'm continuing to engage and learn, the emotional experiences that I'm having through the process, and the feedback from instructors and practicum site supervisors is all continuing to confirm that I'm on the right track. Regarding my cultural background and experience, it's interesting, or maybe not to others, but to me it was that I didn't really identify as having a cultural background or experience. I grew up in a relatively small town that was mostly white. Didn't really occur to me that there was a different experience. But of course, I am a white, roughly middle class American, maybe lower middle class, and I didn't have a lot of exposure to other cultures growing up. Going into the high tech world, of course, people come from all over the world. A lot of folks from Asia, India, China, Japan, but really all over the world. And so in my 20s and 30s, I really got a lot of exposure to folks with different experiences, mostly related to, the career that we were in and where the world is going that way. But I did have some personal experiences throughout that, friends and interaction in that way. And then my personal experience through addiction and through helping others. I experienced counseling myself, from a racially and culturally diverse background. I was living and working with folks that have a diverse cultural background and different life choices. I was helping them, and basically learning to trust and have real relationships with I put real talk, people talking about their lives and their experiences, and really throughout the last 25 years. And then, of course, I've mentioned briefly my family experience. My family, when I was raised, had a lot of really guarded communication. Things were supposed to be a certain way, and so things that were not really discussed a lot. There's a lot of emotional suppression. My father, I think, he's a very emotional person, but was raised to not show emotion, which has been a big conflict for him. But I have a similar heart to my father, and so as I've matured, I've explored that a little bit, and that's really contributed to my understanding of cultural and counseling in general. Regarding theories and models, man, I'm just in the middle of learning it all, but I sure do gravitate towards cognitive behavioral therapy. In general, I'm a very cognitive person, so CBT fits my brain processes, and it's also got a lot of empirically validated data over the years and documentation that's been done. So it's very effective, and it's effective with my brain. I do associate with existentialism and, as I mentioned, psychoanalytic theories, but haven't delved into those a lot yet. Regarding career counseling, I really like the trait and factor model. It's just, or theory. It's It's just very well established, has been used effectively over the years, and seems to follow my process of thinking when it comes to the interview. I definitely will want to try on some other theories as I'm able to do career counseling. Um, I'm interested in the cognitive information processing, and Super's developmental theory interests me as well. As far as specific models, I like the trait and factor, so model one was what I've been looking at. As far as the influence of my personal history on theoretical choices, I've talked a lot about some of this already. I'm an analytical person. I'm very curious by nature. I'm a problem solver, very interested in people and their stories. As an engineer, my degree was electrical engineering and physics, but as an engineer, I was a process engineer for semiconductors, so very interested in the whole process and how the process functioned, how smoothly it functioned, and how to improve it. Certainly, as a counselor, I will be interested in the process of a person's life, the things that affect that, the characteristics and the dynamics, and how to improve functioning in that individual's life. So I feel like it translates fairly well. I value research and data. Most of the research that I've done in the past has been quantitative. I'm interested to get into some qualitative research and work with data on groups of people a little bit more. But that is something that I value. And then personally, I have a wide variety of work experience, certainly the engineering career, but also as a teen, and then the helper professions that I've been involved in with helping in the community. And for each of those jobs, I've had various motivations. Sometimes I was working for money. Sometimes it was simply for survival. And at times, and certainly now, I'm interested in working for fulfillment, for being the person that God created me to be, and being useful in that role. In doing client career assessment and planning, basically I want to follow the normal path of counseling, kind of based on a trait and factor model, and it's going to be something that I'm going to develop as I practice it, but essentially establishing a therapeutic relationship, building trust, of course gathering all the relevant information about the individual's history and family, interests and values, as well as skills, and then putting some assessments in place to gather that data more effectively, and then reviewing that data with the client, helping them analyze how that all fits together and what it means to them, possibly making some suggestions, providing some education on different things that are out there and opportunities, education on resumes and those kinds of things. And of course, I always want to involve the individual's personal community where applicable, family, or a spouse or children if they're involved, and friends and family in general. Just are they involved in their church? Are they involved in any kind of community group? And I'm all about bringing all that together, because for too long I've compartmentalized my career from the rest of my life, and I'm really into a holistic solution for career, and basically applying who you are to what you're doing in every situation. And lastly, I just wanted to go over a few scriptures that are important to me and I think are relevant to my career, where I've been, where I'm going, and also to potential clients that would be interested in approaching me about career advice. Jeremiah 29:11 is always a favorite of mine. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. That's always shown brightly for me that the future can be positive. The future is positive. That you just have to keep your focus and move forward. Romans 8:28 has kind of been a life verse for me, and we know that for those that love God, and all things work together for good, and for those who are called according to his purpose. Through the darkest times of my substance use, or other times when I've lost friends and family in the past, just hard times in life, this has always been the verse that when I don't understand, I know that God does, and that he's using those things. And like I said, I can see where God was training me and maturing me throughout my life, even that when that was not my intention, it certainly was his, and that he's using those things now in calling for me to be a counselor. Matthew 22:37 through 40 talks about the greatest commandments. First, to love God with everything that you are, paraphrasing, of course, and then to love your neighbors yourself. And I look at that as God's grace and God's saving me. God was my helper. How much more should I help those around me? So my way of loving my neighbor, one of the ways of loving my neighbor is to learn to be a counselor and skillfully help those that I can. And then Matthew 11:28 through 30. Come to me, all you who are labor and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I think that that is something that we can share with others. I think that if you do what God created you to do, that while it may be challenging, it won't be painful to live your life that way, and that you can share that with others, and that there can be rest in the midst of the work. And then finally, John 8:31 and 32, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, all related to being a disciple of Christ. And that's truly what I'm seeking to do with my life. I want to be free. I believe that Jesus Christ can make me that way, continue to make me that way, and I want to share that with others. And I think that counseling is a good way to move others towards the light of Jesus Christ. Thank you.